So Avilo stated on his Twitter, hopefully Blizzard tests different economy. I cannot see Legacy of the Void surviving with the current gun-to-your-head, expand-or-die eco-style. What are your thoughts, and how do you think the game's economy will look a year from now?
I think that we no offense to Avilo, but I mean, we all know how he plays, and that's just kind of, he's probably having trouble expanding continuously. I mean, no offense to him, but I mean, I don't know.
I think his style, definitely, if you purely want to play in a turtley style, this is definitely not the game for you at the moment. It's very hard to turtle.
It's a little difficult. Yeah.
Like, I know Terrans and Protosses have been doing that a lot with the new macro changes, and I think it's due to for Protoss, I don't know how viable it is to not turtle currently. I've been trying to not turtle, but sometimes I just kind of feel too scared to move out, especially versus Zerg. They seem to have a little bit more ratio-wise, but that's something they could always balance out. But, like, it's just you shouldn't be doing that. Like, I can understand that lower league players like to, stay in their base, they're not comfortable with leaving. So I can understand the concept of maybe the game not surviving if it's like, you know, quote-unquote, gun to your head, mass expand eco style. The lower league players struggling with that because there's a lot of turtling down there. It's not very aggressive. They don't have the APM to be aggressive. So they just kind of sit in their base and make stuff. Because sometimes, to some people, that's the most fun part of StarCraft, right? Sit there and make stuff, and then send that stuff across the map. So I can see where that idea would be true, but I think for, like, I think higher level players won't really mind, because most of them aren't that turtley, from what I've noticed. The best of the best aren't very turtley.
Alright, any more comments on this?
I actually listened to when Avilo was talking about this stuff. So it just to give you insight on what he said, because first off, like, not everyone's a big fan of Avilo, and I'm not necessarily a fan, but what he did say kind of resonated a little bit. He was talking about how workers, like, he feels like the game is so much centered around whoever can kill the other person's workers, that it's kind of like how Hellbat versus Hellbat was in TVT. Kind of has that feel to it, that it's just both players desperately trying to hurt each other's economy, like throwing whatever you can at each other, and that's due to the way the economy is. So that's where he's coming from. And I think at this point, the game just needs to be played more. It needs to be explored more. And especially with the timings of how everything has been changed, like when medevacs come out, when drops come out, I'd imagine in TBT that not everything's fully figured out. So I think his comment was a little bit hasty, but I think there is some truth to what he says.
Well, when you put it in that context, I actually agree with him. I definitely feel like Legacy of the Void is favoring a little more worker kills as opposed to... Well, the way I see it is there's the emphasis on big armies and then the emphasis on small armies with lots of action everywhere. In the second case, you're going to be more focused on targeting workers because you may not always get the base kill. And even in early Wings of Liberty, there was a question, do you target bases, do you target workers? Well, the general consensus throughout StarCraft II has been, take out that freaking base. Up till now, at least. Now, like you just said, it seems like we're targeting workers. Is that a good thing?
I think that's like an opinion thing. Like, individuals. Like, I've always been frustrated that when you kill Terran workers, I feel like it doesn't do a lot, because they're actually more reliant on the mules. When you kill a mule, you're like, so happy. You're like, oh my god, I just robbed him of 270 quick minerals. Yeah. You kill a worker, and you're like,
it's a mule.
He has a mule. And then, like, but now you kill a worker and you're like, well, I just won the game. So I think there's, like, two different, like, extremes here, right? And it's kind of like what you want the game to be. Do you want this to be a harass game? Do you want it to be a, big fight-on-fight game? Do you want it to be small battles everywhere? And which would kind of be more towards a harass thing, because in theory, your opponent's forces are spread out enough to prevent you from harassing, right?
Well,
but you also want comeback potential, so there's a lot of everything. And there's no comeback potential as far as I can see right now. Right. It's very hard to come back.
Let's work within the frame of reference that Blizzard has given us. They have said outright the Legacy of the Void smaller engagements are the goal. So let's just assume that's the goal and help them achieve it. What are your thoughts? Like, we know that's the goal, so is this the way to do it, and how do they improve the system? Because like you said, there is no comeback potential.
I think we need macro mechanics, and then just to be reduced if they want the slower kind of economy, like removing the macro mechanics, so macro mechanics slows down the economy, right? Because you can't chrono boost your workers out really fast. You can't burst out your production with mules. You can't your first inject isn't going to give you 4 workers. It's going to give you 2 workers. Or if you first 2 injects won't give you 8, they'll give you 4. Like it scales, right? And now you don't have that, right? So you can't burst production your way back to victory. So you won't have you ever seen that Hart versus Jigwa game that Total Biscuit posted, where Jigwa killed all but 3 SEVs and Hart muled his way to victory and split? You won't get that, and that's kind of what really sucks. And so in order to get that, you need an economical way to get back in. And I'm not sure how they could really do that without bringing back the macro mechanics in some way. One way is to do the double harvesting or brood war economy thing, where you have 8 workers on every base, so that if someone harasses a base, they're only going to get 8 workers. They're not going to get 16, so it won't do as much damage to you. And also you have a bunch more bases, so you're constantly making more workers anyway, so it's to get back in. Okay. So that's my idea.
Alright. Well, going back to some of Zeromus's suggestions and topics, he said that a better way to impact Legacy of the Void's economy, he called today's approach the half-patch approach, where you're reducing the patches of nodes and minerals and gas and all that stuff just by an arbitrary value. He said that it would be better to create inefficiencies in the worker mining AI like in Brood War. You were talking about this a little bit earlier, Torque, with worker pairing. That's kind of where we're going at. So, what concerns do you think this proposal would address in the current Legacy of the Void mine-out situation?
You would mine out slower because you're going to have less workers mining on one base, unless you're, for some reason, stuck on one base, right? So, you will mine out slower, so you'll be less pressured to expand, unless your opponent is also expanding and there's nothing you can do about it. Then you're really pressured to expand because you need to keep up, right? So you're more rewarded rather than forced to expand. When it comes to coming back, since you need less workers to be efficient on one base, it's easier to come back because you don't have to fulfill as many workers. And like I said before, if you're on a 5-base economy with 8 workers in each one, and you get dropped on one base, that's a 1/5 of your economy. That's going to take 2 rounds of worker production to replace, so you can come back. It's only massive blows, like killing 2 bases worth of workers, that is really going to hurt you, which will really reward a double dropping player, or double... I guess with Zerg it's less dropping. Actually, no, you have Overlord drops now. Never mind, you could be double dropping too. But, I honestly think that'll fix most things. Blizzard's reluctantness to do it, I think, comes from a misunderstanding of why we want these things and what we think it'll achieve. I know once Lush said something about why the double harvester... if you looked at the double harvester show matches, they didn't do much, right? The games weren't that different from Heart of the Swarm. And Lelouch, I forget where he said this, but he said this on a Reddit post, that the reason is because of the macro mechanics, because they boost things too fast, right? So without the macro mechanics, without this boosted economy, I feel like you could actually get away with the double harvester model, or with the Brood War AI funky, not being able to mine off one patch, right? So I think because of that... Oh, do you have the link?
Yeah, it's right.
You did? Oh, wonderful. You're so prepared. Yeah, so... Yeah, he explained in there that because the macro mechanics make the game so fast, you can't have a double harvester model and notice the differences, because your economy is going to get to that place super, super fast, and the other person can be able to catch up super, super fast. But now that no one can catch up super, super fast, right? Because if someone takes a 4th base and you didn't see it yet, you can't chrono out your probes to get over there. You can't inject, you can kind of inject, but not fully inject your way over there. And you can't mule your way to catch back up. So you'll get the reward, but which you didn't see before because, you had those mechanics. So I think now that they removed the mechanics, even if they're just going to internally test it, I hope they revisit the idea of it again, because without the mechanics, I think this will be a lot better.
Right.
And, right, Lelouch wrote a lot here, Jesus.
Yeah. I'll let you read that. Telecom, Rock, either of you want to chime in?
Telecom hasn't talked in a while. I think we should hand out to him.
I think that there, honestly, I would be interested in seeing a lot of what Lelouch talked about. He's written a lot of interesting stuff, and he's disproved a lot, proved a lot of things.
The links in chat.
Yeah, let's see.
If you actually want to read a little bit of it to the audience, that's cool too, since this is playing a huge role.
Yeah, it looks like a Brood War worker spends 3.2 seconds mining versus 2 seconds for the SC2 worker. So yeah, I mean, I guess if the workers had a little more inefficiencies, it would be. I think it would probably make the flow of the game a little more interesting, for sure. And it might honestly affect units like, the disruptor that are aiming to get worker hits like that.
Brock?
I've always wanted to see implemented is doubling the health of everything. An extreme change. I know, but I honestly think it would be very interesting just to keep the damage rates the same and see how that would affect the game. Just in terms of
I think they've
battles would be
tested
slowed down, harassed would be slowed down, things would be more spread out. That's a change I've always wanted to see happen. Always.
They've mentioned they've tested that, and they said it made micro really easy because the battles are so long.
Warcraft
that
3!
like it was hard.
But you could find a balance. You wouldn't have maybe 1/3 more health, or one.
Like they could try that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough then.
As someone who loves Blink Micro and really wants it to continue being hard, because I am the happiest person in the world when I get Blink versus Blink in PvP.
Yeah.
I would not like it if it was like easy enough, because it takes so long for the Stalker to die that it's easy to be able to blink back, because Blink is already really strong versus Zerg, for example, right? So like if it was so easy for me to see, like I can actually just see the shields go down slowly because it has so much health or shields or whatever, and the damage rate the same, that'd be too easy. So I can see Blizzard's perspective on that. I forget when they mentioned this, but they did this a while ago. That
what if it was just health,
just
not
made micro
shields?
easy. Yeah, huh?
What about just health, not shields?
And then the Protoss player isn't rewarded for micro, right? Because then your shields like disappear in an instant, and then you blink back, and then
the damage rate stays the same though.
The damage rate stays the same, yeah. But then if the shields stay the same, shields already kind of like Stalker has 80/80, right? So shields same as health, so they go away pretty quickly. 80 shield isn't a lot in big fights for an individual. But then the reason it's really rewarding is because it's half as health. You can regenerate half of what it is as long as you blink it back in time, right? So you kind of lose that reward of good blink micro if you were to have like 160 health and 80 shield, right? Because then you're only getting a fourth of the value back. Then it's not really that worth it.
But then I think positioning would come out a lot more. Like
Maybe.
in terms of longer fights is going to promote, you're going to be able to do more things because you have more time.
Yeah.
Nowadays fights are like, except maybe Blink,
I can
Blink
say
is
longer
a very,
fights would help.
Blink is a very single, like I feel it's kind of separate from most normal engagements. Like compared to most of the other fights that happen in the game, Blink is very unique. But the normal fights you see nowadays in Heart of the Swarm is like 5 abducts happen, blinding cloud, maybe a fungal, maybe 4 seconds of fighting with a bunch of transfuses, and boom, it's over. If you doubled the health, that engagement could last double the time. Positioning would be much more important. You'd like. I just think it would be an interesting test for the community to try out at least. So
Yeah.
but
I think one thing that'll help Protoss with that is the fact that we have like 10 billion abilities now. You don't understand where I had the idea that I'd be like, maybe I can go like Phoenix versus Terran when I was struggling before the macro mechanic changes. I was like, maybe Phoenix, Adept, Disruptor, Storm. Now, controlling all of these things was a pain, because you had to have a control group for the Phoenix, a control group for the Storm, a control group for the Disruptors, and you could or could not have a control group for the Charge Loss. It didn't really matter. That was easy to manage. But, like, being able to switch between all those things and not lose all your Phoenixes to, like, a single Thor who decided to park himself in the middle because the Terran was smart, or to, like, actually use your Disruptors because, you know, it was just crazy, and because the battles are so fast, it's really hard to do all that with so many abilities, and it's such a struggle. So I think if they want to keep this heavy ability thing, that might actually be a really good idea, thinking about it.
Alright.
Now I have time to use these abilities Blizzard wants me to use.
and then everyone would have time to be able to counter micro. So then you would,
Yeah.
and also, yeah, it's just an interesting change I've always wanted to see. That's the point. We really don't know. It could be horrendous, but
It could
I
be.
think economic changes are the most critical, and they're fundamentally probably the best way to do it. If you had the economy model perfect, whatever that may be, that would be the best way to go. But like, for instance, double health, that could be a really good solution if we can't find like another solution to it that economy can fix. So.
Okay, so we've hinted at worker pairing a little bit, but the next segment is going to be mostly nothing but worker pairing. Would one of you guys like to define it so that the audience has some kind of framework within which to understand for the lower level players?
Yeah, sure. So worker pairing is when you can basically in Heart of the Swarm and Legacy of the Void at the moment, say you have your 8 mineral patches. The reason why for Heart of the Swarm 16 out of 24 and Legacy 16 out of 16 is optimal is because you can have 2 workers mining on one patch optimally. So as one's mining and the other one's returning, when it comes back the other one's finishing. So they kind of in sync can mine together, and it looks really pretty when you can get it done. And a lot of pro players will like force their workers to like worker pair on the closest patches first to get their income slightly faster. So like your first gateway or barracks or spawning pool is a little bit quicker because your 2 workers are mining on the closer patches faster. And in Brood War and in the Double Harvester, you only had 1 worker, right? And then the second worker, or in the case of Heart of the Swarm, the third worker, mines less efficiency. It mines at like, I don't know the exact math behind it. I know 16 and 18 is like 99%. It's actually pretty close, or 17 and 18. It's pretty close, but from there it like drops off dramatically to like 50%, 40. On overgrowth, at least.
Yeah,
it can't be different on different maps.
The 17th and 18th worker are 99% efficiency,
Yeah.
and everything else is like 70.
Just goes down, so that worker's barely mining and compared to the initial 16 to 18 workers. And so that's why you expand, that's why you don't sit on 3 bases of 24 out of 24, because 16 of those workers aren't doing much, or 14. And that's what it is. And people want to have the worker pairing removed because that way you can have like 6 bases with 8 workers each instead. That's like the easy way to say it.
Yeah. Okay, so we're getting a little long on time. It's we're about 50 minutes in. Hopefully we can run through the last few of these questions pretty quickly, but they're going to be the detailed, so let's try to get through it. Currently in StarCraft II, like you were just saying, Torque, there's a 2-to-1 model, 2 workers per 1 node. Brood War used a 1-1 model with diminishing returns coming in immediately after. In StarCraft II, 16 workers on 1 base mine at the same rate as 8 workers each on 2 base. That's again the 2-to-1 model. In Brood War, though, 8 workers each on 2 base would mine quite a lot more than the 1 base saturated by 16 workers due to the ratio. What impact would reducing the workers to node ratio have on gameplay? For example, 2-to-1 in StarCraft II, 1.5-to-1 in Starbow, and 1-to-1 in Brood War.
The biggest impact. Okay, so you can go first.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would, I mean, we'd see people expanding a lot more, a lot faster, and a lot more aggressively. And you know that change might actually potentially help more certain styles more than others. I'm not entirely sure, but maybe more passive style might benefit more from that. But yeah, I mean, that would be definitely an interesting change I'd like to see, or at least experiment with.
Design-wise, it should encourage people to take more bases and do less of the turtley stuff.
Yeah, I would disagree a little bit with you, Telecom. I don't think that would make people expand a lot more. People will expand a lot more if your opponent is turtling. Because otherwise, say if me and you are both active on the map and I'm on 2 bases and I decide to take a third, that third is not going to survive if the other person's also aggressive, right? So it'll only, or if I decide to take a third and a fourth, or like just expand really aggressively really quickly, that won't work unless your opponent is being passive or turtly, right? So I think it'll only really come into play visually. You'll only see the difference in that scenario, which is good, because currently you don't have a way to punish a 2-base turtling player, because you take a third and are not mining that much more than them, right? But in the case of a 2-base turtling player, I could take a third, mine a lot more than them, and then take a fourth and mine a credible amount more than them, and just throw my units inefficiently, willy-nilly at their base, not caring how many die, because I'll eventually just kill them. Can't do that.
You played Protoss, not Zerg.
Used to play Zerg.
But even as Protoss, like, if someone, say if you're playing like a 2-baser, right, and you can't break them, right, it kind of sucks now, because you're on 3 bases, you're not getting that much more. If you trade inefficiently, you can trade a little inefficiently, but not really inefficiently, right? But in the case of a double harvester one, say if you had 4 or 5 bases and they have 2, you can trade ridiculously inefficiently, and you won't care, and you'll eventually break them, and you'll get rewarded for it. That's my thoughts.
Alright, well, okay, sorry, I was checking on the time because I know Carter has got to go shortly, so it looks like we got probably 10-15 more minutes. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this content, and clearly you do, you made it this far after all, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much, and have a great day.